So now we had to get the attorneys to go down to talk to their attorneys because they had script, and to bring the first piece into fabrication took another year. And I had a show coming up at the Dia Foundation, and Michael Govan and Lynn Cook, I said, look, I'm not going to make the show because I'm having a hard time getting these pieces fabricated. And so I went back down, we got online again, and in order to actually fabricate them, they had to line heat them, which means that you take the steel, and when it doesn't come together, and actually the Japanese came up with this, you pass fire over the steel, and that will make the steel curve to the tolerances that you need that you can't quite get with the specification of putting it in and out of the roller or in and out of a brake. So and the Japanese have been doing it for years. So you heat with line to bend the steel. So we line heated those pieces, which we would go down there and spend days and the pieces wouldn't come together. And finally, we were able to make 3 of those pieces, and we showed them at Dia. And I thought
that was the first time, right?
Yeah, for the first time.
The Dia exhibition, yeah.
And I thought, were there 3 or 4? 3? 3. And I thought that I was going to receive kind of the same criticism I'd been receiving after the Tilted Arc fiasco.
Which fiasco?
The Tilted Arc nonsense. That basically the reception for my work was kind of not so wholesome. And when these torqued ellipses went up, there was a whole new generation of people. I went in there on a Saturday, and I really couldn't. People were sitting inside the pieces. I saw a woman go in a wheelchair, get out, and stand up and try to touch the wall. So people were relating to these vessels in a way that they hadn't related to my sculpture before, and a whole new generation of people got interested in the fact that I was making these things, which I found like not only encouraging, but astounding, because one doesn't know where an audience is for one's work. You can't predict it. And you don't know, you build your work, you hope that you're going to try to communicate something of a kind to someone else. You think that you're making an invention that possibly will fulfill something you need in your mind's eye, but you're not sure it's going to be fulfilling to anyone else. Those pieces actually, and the response and the feedback I got, was a tremendous encouragement. And so we went on building not only torqued ellipses, but torqued spirals and pieces inside of pieces. And then Bilbao came up.
Bilbao is probably one of the most beautiful examples.
Yeah, and then we did 2 shows.
Collaboration with an architect also.
Well, we don't have to go there. but basically, we did 2 shows in Bilbao. We did the first show of, I think, 6 or 7 pieces. And then those pieces were taken down. And then there was 2 years later, there was one piece that was built for the opening of the museum, which was a big snake piece. But then they had several shows there in that big hall. And they realized that nothing was working in the hall. Nothing was really collecting the space. So they asked me if I would do another installation, after I'd already done 6 pieces there. They asked me if I would do another installation of that body of work. And I said, yeah, I'll do it if you make it permanent. And they said, what do you mean permanent? I said, put the pieces up for 20 years and we have a deal. And they looked at the models and said, okay.
Great.
And the pieces are still up there. And for me, it was one of the biggest kinds of I've ever done. And I was back up last year. And that's still a very gratifying body of work. And I wanted to keep it as a very close-knit syntax, so you could actually go from one piece to the other. You wouldn't really have to know anything about the history of sculpture to understand how the vocabulary unfolds, to understand the distinctions and differences between walking and looking and what the sensations that might occur in terms of your own feeling. And so that installation for me has provided kind of a useful source, not only to make further work, but also it gave me a kind of courage to realize that you can invent something that's completely off the wall, and there can be an audience for it if you stay true to your own language and not cater to what you think ought to be made. And that hadn't happened until the Dia show and until Bilbao.
Bilbao, yeah. I think, unfortunately, time is over.
Okay.
Or the first part. Just a last question, a personal question.
Yeah.
I mean, you are one of the greatest artists, most honored artists, contemporary artists, living artists. I don't know, I saw the list in the catalog of all the awards you got, the honoris causas from all universities from all over the world. So you could now a little bit lay back and take it more easy, but you're still working very hard. So what motivates you to go on, and also to go to the limits?
I think, and you can ask Peter the same thing. You're probably as good as your last work. And once you start looking over your shoulder, you might as well give up. And I'm not interested in building shrines to myself, and I'm not interested in building cathedrals. I'm interested in trying to invent and deal with the language that I've developed and see if I can extend that language that I've developed. And I'm trying to see if I can make work as intense and abstract as some of the earlier work I've done. And I would like to, if possible, reinvent what I've invented.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you very much.